more than 200 Israeli soldiers may have been killed in a single wave, and if that number holds, this could become one of the deadliest single military strikes in Israel's history. The first reports came in just after midnight. A massive explosion rolled across the Negev desert, and within minutes, emergency sirens were sounding across southern Israel. At first, military officials thought it was just another routine missile interception, but what satellite sensors picked up seconds later told a completely different story. Multiple high-speed ballistic objects were descending straight toward one of Israel's most heavily defended military sites. The target was not a civilian city, it was not a border radar station, it was the center of Israel's most advanced air power, Nevatim Air Base. This base is home to Israel's fleet of stealth F-35 aircraft, some of the most advanced warplanes ever built. For years, Nevatim had been viewed as nearly untouchable, protected by multiple layers of missile defense and some of the most advanced surveillance systems in the region. But tonight, something went terribly wrong. Several Iranian ballistic missiles reportedly slipped through the defensive shield, and seconds later, huge fireballs lit up the desert sky as explosions ripped through the airbase. Fuel depots erupted first, then secondary blasts began tearing through aircraft shelters and military living areas. According to early battlefield assessments moving through intelligence channels, the strike was devastating. Those reports now claim that more than 200 Israeli soldiers were killed in the first wave alone. If those numbers are confirmed, this would instantly become one of the deadliest single military attacks in Israeli history, and it raises a terrifying question now being asked by analysts in Washington, Tel Aviv, and Tehran. How did Iranian missiles manage to hit one of Israel's most secure air bases? Before we break down what may have happened tonight, make sure to subscribe to John OG Times so you do not miss the next updates as this situation keeps developing. Because if these reports are accurate, may be watching the start of a much larger regional escalation. Nevatim Air Base is not just another military site. It represents Israel's long-term strategy for maintaining air superiority across the Middle East. The base hosts Israel's stealth F-35 Adir fleet, aircraft specifically built to break through advanced air defenses and hit targets deep inside hostile territory. For years, these jets have been seen as Israel's most powerful deterrent against countries like Iran. From this base, Israeli pilots can reach almost any strategic target in the region, and that makes Nevatim one of the most valuable military assets Israel has, which is exactly why analysts believe it may have been deliberately chosen as a primary target. Early intelligence suggests the strike may have involved multiple long-range Iranian missiles launched from different directions at the same time. This kind of coordinated launch is designed to overwhelm missile defense systems, forcing them to track and intercept many threats at once. Even the best defense systems can struggle under that level of pressure, and if only a few missiles get through, the consequences can be catastrophic. Satellite images from the first hour after the strike reportedly show several large burn zones across the airbase. Those marks suggest direct hits on critical infrastructure. Aircraft hangars appear to be among the damaged structures, and if that is confirmed, it could mean some of Israel's most advanced jets were destroyed before they ever had the chance to take off. The Israeli military has not yet released a full statement confirming the scale of the damage, but emergency response teams were seen rushing toward the base within minutes of the explosions. Fire crews, medical helicopters, and military convoys began pouring into the area. Local hospitals were suddenly placed on emergency alert. What makes this situation even more alarming is the timing. The strike reportedly happened during a shift change, when a large amount of personnel were gathered in barracks and operation centers. If that detail is accurate, it could explain why the casualty numbers are so shockingly high. It may also suggest that whoever planned the attack had detailed intelligence on activity patterns inside the base. That raises another disturbing possibility. Was this simply a missile strike, or was it part of a much larger and carefully coordinated operation? Because military analysts are already pointing to something unusual about the timing of the launches. Several radar systems reportedly detected the missiles only seconds before impact. That could mean they followed a highly optimized flight path designed to avoid early detection. Or it could suggest the use of newer missile technology that travels faster and lower than earlier generations. Either way, It appears the attackers knew exactly what they were doing, and now the region is bracing for what comes next, because when a military installation this important is hit this hard, retaliation becomes almost unavoidable, and the next move could decide whether this crisis stays limited or explodes into something far bigger. The shock inside Israel's military command structure was immediate. Within minutes of the explosions, emergency communication channels were activated between Air Force headquarters and the national security leadership. Senior commanders reportedly rushed into underground control rooms as fresh radar data began flooding their screens. What they saw made the situation even more alarming. The missile strike did not look like a random barrage. It looked precise, calculated, and brutally effective. Several missiles had struck the central operations section of Nevatim Air Base. That area contains maintenance facilities, aircraft shelters, and housing zones where hundreds of personnel stay during operational rotations. Witnesses near the base described massive columns of smoke rising into the night sky. Some residents more than 30 kilometers away said the ground actually shook when the first explosions hit. First responders who reached the scene reportedly faced a chaotic and devastating situation. Fires were spreading across multiple sections of the base while wounded soldiers were being carried on stretchers toward waiting helicopters. In the first hour after the attack, Israeli air defense systems across the country were placed on the highest possible alert. Extra interceptor batteries were activated while commanders feared that a second wave might already be on the way. But what worried analysts even more was the type of missile believed to have been used in the strike. Early defense assessments suggest these may have been advanced Iranian ballistic missiles capable of traveling more than 1,000 kilometers. These weapons move at extremely high speeds, sometimes several times faster than sound. That means defense systems often have only seconds to detect, track, and intercept them. If multiple missiles arrive at the same time from different paths, even advanced systems can be overwhelmed. And that may be exactly what happened over Nevatim. Early satellite tracking reportedly showed launches coming from more than one direction. Some missiles appeared to approach on a high ballistic arc, while others came in on a lower, flatter path. This kind of mixed trajectory attack is specifically built to confuse radar systems. It forces missile defenses to divide their attention between multiple threats at once. Military planners sometimes call this a saturation attack, and when it is done properly, it can open gaps in even the strongest defensive shield. For years, Israel's missile defense network has been viewed as one of the most advanced in the world. It includes multiple layers designed to intercept everything from short-range rockets to long-range ballistic missiles. But tonight, those layers may have been tested in a way they never had been before. If the reported casualties are confirmed, the psychological impact inside Israel could be enormous. Nevatim is not just a base full of aircraft and equipment. It represents Israel's technological edge and its ability to strike enemies far beyond its borders. Seeing that symbol hit so directly could change the entire strategic picture. Inside defense circles in Washington, the strike is already triggering urgent discussions. American officials have long viewed Israeli air bases as critical partners in maintaining regional security. And Nevatim, in particular, plays a key role because it houses stealth aircraft capable of carrying out deep precision missions. Those jets were meant to be the backbone of future deterrence against Iran. If several of them were damaged or destroyed on the ground, it would mark a major strategic setback. And that possibility is now being quietly assessed by military analysts across the Pentagon. But perhaps the most dangerous part of this situation is what happens next, because historically, Israel has responded with major force when important military assets are attacked. In earlier conflicts, even smaller strikes on military infrastructure triggered powerful retaliatory operations, and this attack, if the scale is accurate, would stand far above anything seen in recent years. Israeli fighter squadrons at other bases are reportedly already preparing for possible missions. Pilots have been placed on quick alert while commanders review response options. Those options could range from targeted airstrikes on missile launch sites to much more aggressive operations deep inside hostile territory. And if the retaliation expands beyond limited strikes, the entire Middle East could be pulled into a much wider confrontation. Regional powers are now watching closely, calculating what this moment may mean because one devastating attack can quickly trigger a chain reaction, and once that chain begins, controlling escalation becomes extremely difficult. As fires continued burning across Nevatim Air Base, Israeli surveillance drones were already rising into the sky. Their mission was simple but urgent: identify exactly where the missiles had come from. Military radar data was being reviewed second by second inside Israel's Air Defense Command Center. Analysts were trying to reconstruct the exact launch points that allowed the missiles to slip through the shield. The first clues pointed east. Several radar tracks appeared to begin deep inside Iranian territory, suggesting the missiles had traveled hundreds of miles before striking the base. If that assessment is correct, it means the attack was not carried out by a proxy, militia, or regional partner. It would mean the strike was launched directly by Iran itself. And that instantly raises the stakes to a completely different level because a direct Iranian attack on a major Israeli military base would represent one of the most dangerous escalations the region has seen in decades. It would move the conflict out of the shadows and into open state against state confrontation. Inside government buildings in Jerusalem, leaders were now facing enormous pressure to respond decisively. Many security officials believed that failing to retaliate quickly could weaken Israel's deterrence across the region. For decades, Israel has built a reputation for responding with force when its military infrastructure is attacked. That reputation has often been one of the key reasons adversaries hesitate before launching large-scale assaults, but tonight's strike has tested that reputation in a way few events ever have. A direct hit on the base that houses Israel's F-35 fleet sends a powerful message to every military planner watching the region. And that message is simple but dangerous. No target can be considered completely safe anymore. Iran, for its part, has not officially confirmed responsibility for the strike. Still, several Iranian media outlets have already started celebrating what they describe as a strategic victory. Some reports claim the strike was carried out using long-range precision missiles capable of bypassing advanced defenses. Those weapons are part of Iran's growing missile program, which has expanded sharply over the last decade. For years, Iran has invested heavily in developing missiles that can hit targets hundreds or even thousands of kilometers away. Those weapons are often described as Tehran's main deterrent against technologically superior air forces. Tonight's strike, if it truly was launched from Iranian territory, would demonstrate that capability in dramatic fashion, and that would instantly change the strategic calculations of every country in the region. Meanwhile, world leaders were starting to react as the news spread across international media. Diplomatic channels between major powers suddenly came alive as governments tried to understand the situation. Officials in Washington were reportedly in direct contact with Israeli defense leaders. The United States has long been Israel's closest military ally, and events like this immediately trigger strategic consultations. American intelligence agencies were also reviewing satellite data and radar tracking information. Their goal was to confirm exactly how the missiles were launched and whether more strikes could be coming, because the biggest fear right now is escalation. History has shown that when major military facilities are attacked, retaliation often follows quickly. And once retaliation begins, the situation can spiral beyond anyone's control. One attack leads to another, then another, until the whole region gets trapped inside the cycle. For now, Israeli fighter jets remain in the air and missile defense systems remain active. The country is effectively standing on the edge of its next decision. Will Israel launch immediate retaliatory strikes deep inside Iran, or will leaders pause and try to prevent a wider war? Those decisions may be made within hours, and whatever choice is made could shape the geopolitical future of the Middle East. Before this develops further, I want to hear your perspective. Do you believe this strike will trigger a direct war between Israel and Iran? Write your thoughts in the comments because this is one of the most serious military developments we have seen in a long time. Your view helps create an informed discussion around events that affect the whole world. And if you know someone who follows global politics closely, send them this video so they can understand what is happening right now. Moments like this can reshape international relations overnight. Make sure you stay connected with John OG Times because the story is still unfolding. New information could emerge at any moment, and the next update may reveal whether this strike becomes a turning point for the region. As dawn slowly approached over the Negev desert, the full-scale of the destruction at Nevatim Air Base was beginning to come into view. What had started as distant flashes in the night was now being revealed as one of the most shocking military attacks Israel has faced in years. Satellite images taken only hours after the explosions began circulating among intelligence agencies. Several sections of the base appeared heavily damaged, with large craters cutting through runways and surrounding operational zones. One reported impact site was located near a complex of hardened aircraft shelters. Those shelters were specifically built to protect Israel's most valuable aircraft during wartime. Seeing damage in that area immediately triggered concern among military analysts because if the missiles had managed to penetrate those reinforced structures, it would represent a major weakness in the base's defenses. Ground crews were now working without pause to contain fires and secure unexploded debris. The explosions had scattered fragments of missile components across multiple sections of the installation. Security teams were carefully collecting those fragments for analysis. Every piece of metal could reveal critical information about the weapon used in the attack. Engineers were focusing in particular on guidance systems and propulsion components. Those parts could help confirm exactly which missile model was used and how it managed to reach its target. Meanwhile, Israeli fighter jets from several other bases continued patrolling the skies. Air Force commanders were determined to prevent any possibility of a second surprise strike. Air defense batteries across the country remained fully activated. Radar operators monitored every possible launch corridor that could threaten Israeli territory. But while the military focused on defense, political pressure inside Israel was building quickly. Public anger and shock were spreading as reports of the casualties began reaching the wider population. Families of soldiers stationed at Nevatim were desperately searching for information. Hospitals across southern Israel had started receiving waves of wounded personnel evacuated from the base. Emergency rooms were suddenly overwhelmed with injured soldiers suffering blast wounds and burns. Medical teams worked through the night performing surgeries, while helicopters kept landing outside. The number that hit the nation hardest was the reported death toll. Early battlefield estimates suggested that around 100 soldiers may have been killed in the strike. If confirmed, that figure would represent one of the largest single-day losses in the history of the Israeli military. And that kind of loss carries huge emotional and political consequences. Inside government buildings in Jerusalem, leaders were again facing intense pressure to respond decisively. Many security officials believe that failing to retaliate quickly could weaken Israel's deterrence across the region. For decades, Israel has built a reputation for responding with force when its military infrastructure is attacked. That reputation has often been one of the main reasons adversaries hesitate before launching large-scale assaults, but tonight's strike has tested that reputation in a way few events ever have. A direct hit on the base that houses Israel's F-35 fleet sends a powerful message to every military strategist watching the region. And that message is simple but dangerous. No target can be considered fully safe anymore. Iran, meanwhile, has not officially confirmed responsibility for the strike, but several Iranian media outlets have already begun celebrating what they describe as a strategic success. Some reports claim the strike was carried out using long-range precision missiles able to bypass advanced defenses. Those weapons are part of Iran's growing missile program, which has expanded sharply over the past decade. For years, Iran has invested heavily in developing missiles that can hit targets hundreds or even thousands of kilometers away. Those weapons are often described as Tehran's main deterrent against technologically superior air forces. Tonight's strike, if it truly came from Iranian territory, would demonstrate that capability in dramatic fashion, and that would instantly change the strategic calculations of every country in the region. At the same time, global leaders were beginning to react as the story spread across international media. Diplomatic channels between major powers suddenly became active as governments tried to understand the situation. Officials in Washington were reportedly in direct communication with Israeli defense leaders. The United States has long been Israel's closest military ally, and events like this immediately trigger strategic consultations. American intelligence agencies were also reviewing satellite data and radar tracking information. Their goal was to confirm exactly how the missiles were launched and whether additional attacks could follow, because the greatest fear right now is escalation. History has shown that when major military facilities are hit, retaliation often follows quickly, and once retaliation starts, the situation can spiral beyond anyone's control. One strike leads to another, then another, until the entire region becomes trapped in the cycle. For now, Israeli fighter jets remain in the air and missile defense systems remain active. The country is effectively standing on the edge of its next decision. Will Israel launch immediate retaliatory strikes deep inside Iran, or will leaders pause and try to stop a wider war? Those choices may be made within hours, and whatever decision is taken could shape the geopolitical future of the Middle East. Before this situation develops further, I want to hear your perspective. Do you think this strike will trigger a direct war between Israel and Iran? Write your thoughts in the comments, because this is one of the most serious military developments we have seen in a very long time. Your opinion helps create an informed discussion around events that affect the entire world. And if you know someone who closely follows global politics, send them this video so they can understand what is happening right now. Moments like these can reshape international relations overnight. Make sure you stay connected with John OG Times because this story is still developing. New information could appear at any moment, and the next update may reveal whether this strike becomes a turning point for the region. If tensions keep rising, the consequences could reach far beyond one airbase in the desert. They could reshape the balance of power across the Middle East and beyond. Yeah.